Hey, this is Paul Payton with Focal Splash, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a difficult selection and cut something out in Photoshop. We're working on this composite, and we're going to cut this girl out, we're going to cut this castle out, and we're going to use them in the composite. So just like most things in Photoshop, there's several ways to do anything. This is the way I do it. If you can show me an easier, faster, or more accurate way to do this, I would be grateful. This is the second in a series of tutorials where I composite this image with these components and come up with this image. So let's get to it. First, I want to show you the tools that can be used to make a selection and how to cut things out. So here we are with the girl. First selection tool is called the rectangular marquee tool. Right? And it just draws a box, draws a rectangle. If you want to draw a square, when you're using this, then you can hit Alt and Shift while you draw, and it'll draw a perfect square around the center point that you clicked on. So, and then, for instance, if I want to draw a square around her knee here, Alt and Shift, and draw it right there. Draws a square around something. Now, if you know where the edge of the square is, and you want to start drawing from there, you just draw it like that. So you know what the edge. I want the edge to be along that line, so I draw it just like that. All right, and so that's a very simple tool. Just draws rectangles and squares. And the other tool that goes along with that is the elliptical marquee tool. Now this draws circles, but it draws ellipses. It draws ovals and things. So you can use it to draw around. You can also use the Alt and Shift, and it will draw a circle around the spot you first start at. It's very, very useful to be able to do that. Otherwise, when you're drawing with it, it starts the edge right where you start and then starts drawing out. But you notice the edge moves as you move. So you want to circle this. You want to circle the head here. You might start here and try to circle it, and it doesn't do it. So then you have to start out here and try and circle it. You still didn't get it right. So you can put your mouse in the center of it, press Alt and Shift, and you're pretty much going to get a circle right around what you're looking at. So you want to circle her head. You'd start right in the middle of it, press Alt, Shift, and you can circle her head like that. All right, why would you want to do that? Well, if you want to draw circles, that's great to do. Cutting something out that's a circle. So we have a selection here at this point. And with the selection, you can do things like cut it out. So Control J on the keyboard will take whatever's in the selection and put it on a new layer. I hit V on the keyboard for the Move tool, and we can move around the selection that we just made. You see here it's on another layer. So I made a selection, I hit Control J and popped it up on its own layer. I can move it around independently. That's one way to take something and put it into another background, if you wanted a circle or something like that. We have a little bit more advanced ways of doing that. So I'm going to hit Control Z. When I say Control, I'm talking about a Windows control, and I apologize for that. I automatically say Control. In a Mac, I mean Command. There is a Control key in Mac, and sometimes that's a Control key, but I used to use Windows, and I haven't really gotten really sharp on saying Command when I mean Command. So forgive me if I mess up my keys when I'm telling you about it. So Command Option Z, and it's going to back one more step and get rid of that layer that we just had. All right, that's not what we want to do. We don't want to cut a circle out, so we have the Lasso tool here. All right, and with the Lasso tool, this isn't how we're going to do it either. You can use the Lasso tool, and we're not going to use the Lasso tool to actually do the selection, but I just want to show you how it works. You just draw a selection around, and notice the reason that I don't really like using the Lasso tool so much is because I'm kind of shaky. And the Lasso tool gives a shaky selection. Now, if I wanted to zoom in, I could, for instance, press the Alt key. That'll remove something from the selection. And I could go in and I could very carefully, you see, though it doesn't work really for me, remove that part of the selection. And then I can add to the selection. But you see, I'm just not, some of you guys are artists. You can draw a straight line. Phew, I can't draw a straight line. So we'll the shift key, try to get rid of that part of it. I've seen people go and just get rid of pieces at a time and then add pieces back until they get a good selection. That's one of the older school methods of doing it. You know, and you can come up with a pretty good selection that way. But that's not the selection tool I would suggest for this. I use the lasso tool all the time. But what I use the lasso tool for is to make rough selections. So for instance, this is something you might want to do. So for instance, say you wanted to remove this piece right here of grass. You don't like the green in the leaf. You do that, you press Shift Delete, gives you the fill dialog, or you can press Edit Fill and gives you that same dialog. You choose Content Aware and then hit OK, and it removed it. It replaced it with whatever Photoshop thought was a good replacement for it, and that works quite often and quite well. Or when you're blending things in, sometimes you want to make a rough selection around it. And if I wanted to blur that section, I could just blur that part. So that's what I use the lasso tool for a lot, make rough selections. The next tool is the Polygonal lasso tool. And that's if you have a selection that you want to make where you just pick little spots around. And it's very similar to the pen tool. The pen tool is much more advanced, but you can make these straight line selections. So it's a lot easier to, if you're going to select out something that has straight lines, you can just click on that, go like that. I want to run right to there, you see. So just select this tree out. It's going to be easier than drawing a straight line, which I cannot do. But so I'd be able to select that tree pretty good. All right. So that's basically the lasso tool with straight lines, and then the magnetic lasso tool. A lot of people like to use this, and it works by selecting edges. So I'll zoom in here real quick for you, and I'll start by putting it right there, and I'll go right down this around this edge here. I'm not touching anything, I'm not clicking anything. I'll click on the corner there. It's deciding that since I'm moving over this edge, that must be the edge that I want to select. It's kind of neat, isn't it? It's really kind of smart. I clicked there because I wanted it to know I was turning a corner. You know, it's finding the edge, and it's really kind of smart. And then to finish this selection, I'd go over here, go up this way, you know, maybe to here. All right, I double clicked and it finished the selection for me. Kind of a smart tool. You know, there's uses for that. I very rarely use it, but it is there, and it's something you might consider. If you have a nice clean edge around something, you can just zip around it like that, and you'll be able to select that. So those are the lasso tools, and here we have the next thing said is the quick selection tool. There's magic wand tool. I'll go over first. All right, this basically makes selections. To get rid of a selection, you hit Control D. All right, so D will change the default colors here. So if I've chosen a green color as a color there, and I want to make it go back to black and white, I just hit D. Changes it. X swaps those colors. D defaults the colors. I mentioned that because Control D will get rid of a selection. So lasso tool, you made a selection, and you just hit Control D and it'll deselect that. So here's the magic wand tool, and I want to select everything that's next to these colors that is this color. So I just click and it'll select everything within the range of tolerance. So I make the tolerance higher and I make the tolerance even higher, and I click again and it selects everything within that color range of that high tolerance. So I lower the tolerance down to something more useful and Control D and select, and you notice all of these colors are within that tolerance of what that 49. So make it smaller, Control D, and then select that. If I want to add, I just select a little bit more, a little more. This color's over here. If there's colors like that we just selected that are all very similar but they're far apart, You can Control D to get rid of that selection. You can hit contiguous, turn it off. Contiguous means next to each other. So when you turn that off, it'll find all the colors in the image that are within the tolerance anywhere in the image. So that's just a way to make a selection quickly. And if you have something that's red, and it's pretty much the same color red, and it's all over the place, you could just select it and it'll choose all the things that are within the tolerance of that color, and then you can change the color if you want. So for instance, I could go down here and hit curves, right, and I could bring up the brightness of those colors, bring them down. If I wanted to just do it a little bit, I could do it just a little bit, right? So that's how you can select things based on color. Alright, so the Magic Wand tool is an interesting tool. We won't be using that one for this. Finally, the tool that we're going to use, the Quick Select tool. Control D to get rid of that selection. And with the Quick Select tool, it's really, really smart. It is my tool of choice for cutting out subjects. Some people who are much more advanced than me use the pen tool, which I'm not even going to cover. The pen tool is very specific. You can control it and make curves, and it's wonderful if you're an artist and learned and capable of using it. I've seen people use it greatly, but I do not have the skill to do that. So I stick with letting Photoshop do a lot of the work. And that's with the Quick Select tool. Rules for the Quick Selection tool are to stay inside the lines that you want to select. So if I wanted to select her head, I'd just stay inside. I wouldn't go out like this. You wouldn't want to be out here trying to select her, her head. It doesn't, you stay inside of whatever. Control D. I want to select her jacket here. Just stay inside the jacket, and it, boom, does a great job. All right. So the next rule is realize that it's not going to be perfect. All right, don't expect it to be perfect, and when it's not perfect, you're not disappointed. All right. So the Quick Selection tool, it's not the ultimate selection tool. It's called the Quick Select tool. All right. So let's go ahead and select her. Just stay inside of her. Get close to the edge there, but don't go outside of it. And I want to select this part of her. We definitely want to get her hand here. We don't want the mane of the horse. So I press the Alt key. And that changes, you can see, maybe you'll be able to see, it changes to a minus sign. And I just deselect what I don't want. And it remembers that I don't want that. So now if I try to select it again, it won't just reselect the whole thing. It'll only select what's underneath that. That's something to remember. I hit Control Z because I don't want it to remember that I tried to get that. So while you're making the selection, it remembers what you did to deselect and reselect. It's pretty stinking smart. All right, so select. I'm holding the Alt key accidentally. I hit if I make a mistake when I'm making a selection. For instance, I have the Alt key and I deselect that. If you try to reselect that, it's gonna be clunky. So what I do is I hit Control Z and make it forget that I did that mistake, and not try to just go over it, but make it forget totally. So there you go. So making this selection here, selecting her boot, try to get the bottom of her boot there. We don't need the other boot on the other side. And so we have a pretty good selection already. So to refine this selection, let's just get her hair in there too, just for fun here. Let's just see what happens. All right. And so to refine the selection, we go to Select and Mask. Anytime you have a selection tool activated, then Select and Mask is available. So for instance, if I have the Move tool selected, there's no Select and Mask up here. If you have the Marquee, there it is, or the Lasso Tool, the Quick Select tool, you have the selected mask available. So let's click that. And all right, here we have her on a black background, and we can see that it's a fairly good selection. Just zoom in here, we'll go around. It's a pretty good selection here. On a black background, it looks good. All right, we got this green here behind her hair, and under here we're going to refine that. But there's this white edge here. This is the thing that people talk about that makes selections hard. So what I'm going to do first is inside this Select and Mask dialog, we still have the Quick Selection tool. we have the Refine Selection tool, and we have a Brush tool. We also have a Lasso tool. We won't be using that really because we've already pretty much got a better selection than Lasso is going to get us. So I'll go ahead and show you the Quick Select tool in here, and it's actually better than the one that's outside of here. So I'm going to press Alt, and I'm going to deselect what's out here. Oh no, it deselected her hand. Yep, that's something that happens sometimes. And we just reselect her hand. So I've been around the outside edge, so it knows that I don't want the outside edge selected. And reselect. Now you're like, oh, did that mess that up? Well, that's no good. This is a junky tool. Well, X will show you what's back there. So we know that basically this is all of her hand, that it is selected. There's not a piece of a thumb sticking out here or anything else. All right, so with this tool, with the Quick Select tool, I'm going to reselect this and deselect out here, reselect, and deselect, and reselect. You know, the problem is the lines out here. There's a lot of detail out here, and it's not really clear to Photoshop where I want to select and where I want to deselect. You know, so you can tell it. Now I could use the Brush tool here. All right, just hit B, get to the Brush tool. W is the Quick Select tool. R is the Refine tool. So with the Brush tool, I'm going to hit R. I'm going to hit Alt and just remove this part. I don't want that selected. So right there. The reason I don't use the Brush tool the whole time is because I don't draw well. Right? So you don't have to be an artist in the sense that your hands are excellent and still, like some other art, some other art methods. You can allow Photoshop to do quite a bit of the work. All right, so try to select this. I'm going to go back to the Quick Select tool. I want you to see something here, though. This looks like a really good selection right here. Let's change to white. So now the selection is on white, and you notice there's a black line there. So it's not that great a selection. We want to go to the Quick Select tool again. On the outside, hit Alt and deselect out here. Right? And on the inside, we'll just run it on the inside. So we're telling it, yeah, this is what we want to select and this is what we don't want to select. So it gets a little smarter, gets a little closer in. This black right here doesn't need to be there, although we're going to put a shadow underneath her when we're done. So it's not the end of the world that there's a little bit of black on that selection. So took it out. All right, now the difficult part of this, one of the difficult parts of these shoelaces. Right? So if I hit if I hit W and go to Quick Select and just select it, that's okay, but I've told that I want this selected and I want that selected, I want that, so it thinks I really want all this selected. So Control Z, I don't really want all that selected. Now if I hit the Brush tool and I brush over it and select it, all right, and then hit R to refine it, all right, and go outside and see what happens when I tell it to refine this selection. See, it still thinks that I want the dark thing selected, but it's working with me. It gets the idea that maybe it's just the string that I want selected. All right, now why isn't the selection working very well down here? Well, let's hit X, and we can see that it's almost the same color, and there's not a lot of contrast. There's not a lot of anything really to tell that it should be selected. I mean, Photoshop doesn't know it's a string. It's just guessing based on color and contrast. So hit X, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Brush tool, make my brush nice and small here, and I'm going to just go ahead and brush this part in. X, and then brush that on like that, and then X again, and I'm going to use the Brush tool with Alt selected and just brush this away. So with difficult selections, that's when you got to get in there with a a tool like a brush tool or something when Photoshop doesn't know what you want. Photoshop couldn't figure out, make the brush tool a little smaller. Photoshop couldn't figure out that I wanted what I wanted selected here and what I didn't want selected. Brush tool a little smaller here again. Just get rid of this. So something like that. Alright, that's going to be good enough. And the beautiful thing about select and mask and using keeping a mask instead of just deleting things is you can refine this mask later, all the way up until the end of the image. All the way up until the end. You can always come back. I'm going to hit R and refine this right here. Just tell it, look at that again. Are you sure that I wanted it that way? And Photoshop said, oh, he doesn't want any black in there. We got shoelaces here. Let's see what it does with those. All right, hit X and see what we're looking at. I'm going to keep some of those shoelaces. So hit B, X, just find them like that. See what it thinks of that. I like it. All right. Holding the Alt key, just erasing something out here. All right. Again with the quick select, W, pressing the Alt key, just running past this edge here. See if I can get rid of some of that black. Like I said, we're gonna add some of that back in anyway. Okay. So finally, we're gonna look at our hair here with the refine selection tool, and just go over her hair, trying to more go in between the hairs. And it's going to try and select out just her hair. You know, kind of a neat thing there, isn't it? It's some pretty smart engineers who came up with this, the ability to do that. That's impressive. All right, and then down here there's a little bit, and I overdid it. This is definitely hair, not anything else. So there we have it. Let's get rid of some more here. Okay, so we have an edge. Now I noticed something's going on here. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's like there's a line outside of her face. So I kind of want to refine that first. I'm going to hit B for the brush tool and just run out here. Don't know why that's there. Something selected out there. It's probably JPEG artifacts or something. All right. And refine that a little bit. So I'm going to hit the Q. I'm not Q, I'm sorry. I'm going to hit the quick select tool, which is W, and go in here with just run past this one more time. And on the outside, see if we can get rid of this line a little bit. It's still there, so let's look at it. I think we're fine. We'll hit the B key, just get rid of some, refine this a little bit. All right. Okay, I think that's going to be a pretty good selection. The only thing I'm going to look at here is some of this out here. We don't really want that. All right, make that selected. And we can shift the edge. These are some other things here we didn't even talk about. Let's just look at them. We have smart radius. All right, that's telling it that the edges, the edge detection of the where I painted, to try and detect the edge and the number of pixels to try to feather the edge, and it's a very complex thing. Sometimes it will be effective and helpful, and other times it won't. And since, for instance, on the forehead here, there might be some hairs sticking out there, and so this will select those hairs. But I like it. Currently, I like it just the way it is. I think that'll work. Smooth. If the edge is really rough, a lot of times Like for instance, right here, the edge is kind of rough. If you put smooth, you can smooth it all the way out. Look at that. It's like straight lines, all right? Or, you know, something in between. If it's a little rough, you just take the edge off it 1 or 2 pixels. And this is going to depend on the resolution of your image and a lot of things. So I think adding just 1 pixel of smoothness isn't going to hurt it. Feather is kind of neat. You could feather the whole thing away. You know, it's crazy amount of feathering. So it's taking the edge and kind of blurring the edge a little bit. Now for this image, I'm going to feather it by 0.2 pixels. So we're just kind of blurring the edge of the selection just a little bit. And that's going to help her look like she's blending in properly. It's because when you look at something, even in real life, when you look at something, you don't realize it, but the edges of everything you look at are just a little blurred. You know, anything touching something else will pick up color and reflections and things from the corner, you know, from the edges, and that's the way we see. So contrast will take away some of that feather. You know, you can see what it does when it's pumped all the way up. It tries to find contrast in the edges, and we don't really want any of that for this image. And then shift edge in. So if you look around here and you shift the edge in, you can see that it's taking the edge and shifting it towards the center. It's not, you know, shift edge out. We see that all of a sudden where the edge was, now we want more and more pixels that were outside of the edge selected. Shift edge in all the way, less and less pixels are selected, but you know, obviously that makes her look kind of really weird. And so you're going to start at 0, and normally you're going to shift edge in a little bit just to help get rid of anything outside and to help the feather be the feather and the shift edge. All these things go together, but the feather and the shift edge work together. If you add feathering and then you shift the edge in, the feather comes to the inside. If you shift the edge out and add feathering, then the feathering is going towards the out. You see that? It's kind of neat. So just a little bit of feathering and then shifting edge in will cause that feather to feather inside the selection, which is where we really want it. All right. Finally, decontaminate colors. Now this is very effective sometimes, and other times it is not so effective. But the thing that it does you have to watch out for is it actually adds colored pixels. We have decontaminate colors. The color behind her hair there is green, and you hit decontaminate colors. Well, now the color behind her hair there is actually the color of her hair. So this is effective sometimes, and other times it has effects like this, where you know, this is not how we want the selection to look. You know, we don't mind there being a little bit of a different color around the edge as long as we're maintaining the pixels and things around the edge. So decontaminate colors does work sometimes, so you don't want to write it off completely, but it also works with the feather and such. You know, you add more feathering, the decontaminated colors are feathering in as well. So all these things work together, and it really just takes playing with them to figure out what you want to do. But in this case, we're definitely not going to choose decontaminate colors. All right. And then finally, output. I wanted to show something else. When you decontaminate colors, you cannot save the output as a selection or a layer mask, because it does, decontaminating colors actually adds color to your image. So it has to create a new layer. All right, it can't just modify the layer that you're on. It has to create a new layer. So when we do want to create a new layer in this case, but we don't want to add colored pixels to the image. So this is the most likely choice for you, to create a new layer with layer mask. Sometimes you want to use this tool to create a selection for modifying an image, but and you can create a new document or a new document with a layer mask if you want. But if you choose new layer, it's just kind of like hitting Control J. It'll pop this selection up on a new layer without a layer mask, so you won't be able to fix it if you did something wrong. For instance, I'm still not really happy with her nose here, but it'll probably be okay. So if I were to choose new layer, I wouldn't be able to fix that later. But since I choose new layer with layer mask, I can show you. I'll fix it. And then remember settings. I usually choose that just so these settings are basically the same as when I come back. I'm going to change this a little bit right there. All right, and hit OK. And now she's on her own layer. This was what it was before. This is what it is now. All right, so she's all cut out. And that's how I would cut somebody out. All right, so cut her out and move her to, we're going to move her on top of the elephant. So let's do this real quick. To move something from one to another, I would use the Move tool, which is right here, and I also press V. V for move, I don't know why, but maybe it's some other language, right? So Move tool is V, and just drag and bring it up and drop it on the layer you want to put it on. So there, we've moved the elephant. We're going to turn the elephant, do all kinds of things, but for now, we will, having the Move tool selected, we'll grab her and bring it up here and drop her right there on the image that we want to put her on. So there she is. And you can see that no matter where we put her, she's a pretty good selection. Yeah, she looks like she's blending in pretty well. Her hair isn't blending in that well yet. We'll work on that a little bit. Actually, she'll be blending in just fine once we get the rest of the colors and things in here. All right, let's just real quick. We'll cover some things, other things real quick. Here's the castle, and we will quick select on the castle. Just grabbing here, painting only inside of the castle. If you go outside the edge of the castle, you're in big trouble. I'll select this too, just for fun. About down to here, around there, and up this pyre, right about like that. Okay, I like it. I'm going to hit select and mask. That was the quick select tool, by the way. I press Z and move the back and forth, and you can zoom in real easy like that. The space bar allows you to move it around, so you don't have to choose other moving tools and stuff like that. Back to quick select. You see there's something missing here, so I press V and I can see what it is missing. And I just want to run right there. And V, I think that's all selected. V, there's something kind of neat here I want to show you. X, not V. Okay, X is doing that. All right, so I'm going to hit the R, and it's going to give me the Refine tool, and turn it off. And you can see when I paint over that with the Refine tool, it finds that peak sticking up there, which is what I want it to do. And now I can hit X and see if I got, oh, there's a whole thing missing here. So let's try and paint over that and see if the Refine tool picked it up. It's not having a great time. Let's go back to the Quick Select tool and see. Definitely we want that. Great. Okay, now it looks like it's a really good selection, but it's kind of tricky. I want you to look at it now. When on black, it was hiding. This was hiding in the selection because it's pretty much white. So quick select, press Alt. We're going to get rid of that, and you see it overdid it. So we're going to reselect this. All right, reselect this here and press X to see if we got it all. I think that looks pretty good. It's going to be covered by some clouds anyway. Missing this whole peak here. All right, like that. Press R. All right. Now I think that's a pretty good selection. Just real quick and easy for this image. And all the settings were saved from last time. So let's move this out a little bit. Even smooth it out a little bit more than we would for her. That's fine. Not so much feathering not needed. Maybe even a little contrast, because we're supposed to have straight edges. A little bit less smoothing and a little bit less. Yeah, I think I like that. So you just get used to basically playing with those settings and then hit OK. All right, and then we have this cut out. And I'll go ahead and hit the Move tool, V, drag it up, and oops, and drop it right there, which is not where we want it, so we'll move it. It's going to be right about there, I think. All right, so the next tutorial we're going to go over how to blend things in, and I'm going to actually show a different picture than this, because when I look at this, she's going to match that color pretty good. The white balance is pretty close, so I'm not going to have to change her color or even her contrast very much, just a little bit. So I'll do that in the next tutorial, but also I have another picture with another subject that definitely needs some contrast and color adjustments for the background that we're going to put her into. So we'll come back to this, and if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. Put them in the comments or comment on the Facebook page, Focal Splash. And I really like comments, because then it helps out the video. And subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe. We got more tutorials coming up, and I'm sure they'll be a help to you. So you can subscribe, and you can hit the little notification, and it'll notify you when the other tutorials are up. So there it is. I think that's a pretty good cutout. And we'll talk about blending her hair in the next video. Thanks for watching.